So the next item of business, after figuring out where my motor mounts go and all that jazz, is to notch out this cross member so that the oil pan will fit down in this thing. What I did was I slid the motor mounts to the forwardmost position and took some measurements on the actual block itself to see where the oil pan was in relation to the motor mounts. And I determined, I think the oil pan came out to about 8.5 inches. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and notch it out 10 inches wide. So I measured 5 inches from that center hole in either direction. And then also I determined that in its forwardmost position, the oil pan started pretty much directly down from the motor mount. So I think I'm going to cut, you see how there's two little lines there? One's more towards the rear of the truck, one's more towards the front. I'm going to go ahead and cut it right at that front line, and then on these two Sharpie lines that I have marked for the 10 inches clearance. So I'm going to go ahead and notch that out, cut it out, and then I bought some flat bar. I don't know if it's going to be wide enough. I got some 2 inches wide and 3 inches wide. So after I cut that out using that cutoff wheel right there, and obviously wearing earplugs and safety goggles, I'm going to see if that flat bar will work. If it doesn't, I'm going to have to find another source of flat bar or weld those two together to make it tall enough. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start cutting. Then once I've got it cut out, I'm going to test fit the motor down in there, make sure there's enough clearance before I go ahead and weld everything up. Okay, so after about 1,000 years worth of using that cutting wheel, this is what I have. And I'm going to wait until tomorrow to test fit the engine, but I'll show you what I've got, what kind of clearances I have once I do that tomorrow. As you can see, I've got my threads tapped, got my bolts in place, got my motor mounts there, and I also trimmed those little ears off the side that were going to inhibit me putting the motor in place. I only put 2 out of the 3 screws in for the moment because I'm just test fitting it for each motor mount. I feel that's sufficient just for a test. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the motor and see how that oil pan fits down in my notch. Okay, so from the underside, this is what we're looking at. As you can see, there's a big gap on the driver's side. And sorry about the shaky camera, guys. Not such a big gap on the passenger side. Now, I will say this. The manufacturer of these motor mounts, which you can see right there, the only instructions they gave me was where it said the mount with the longer dog ears goes on the driver's side. There's no illustrations, nothing else. That's V8S10.com or S10V8.com, whichever comes first, I'm not sure. So just be aware, if you're going to notch the cross member like I did, that's actually going to make the motor sit more towards the passenger side of the vehicle, and you're going to have to account for that in your notch, because you can see this is touching over here on the passenger side right now. So I'm actually going to have to go remove more material on the passenger side, whereas the driver's side seems to have quite a bit of clearance. Also, you can see right there that it's actually making contact right there as well. So I think I'm going to have to I don't know if there's some way I can raise the motor up a little bit by putting some washers in, or if I'm just going to have to notch it some more on the top. I'm not really sure, so I'm going to have to find a solution for that. If not, I may end up having to buy either the Corvette oil pan or the there's also some hot rod oil pan that they sell. I'm not sure exactly who makes it, but because this is actually, you can see right there, it's hanging down kind of far past the cross member as well. There's the bottom of the cross member, and here's where the oil pan sitting. So that's actually a liability as far as driving the truck around as well, especially since I have the truck lowered. I don't want to be cracking this oil pan open on anything.